Thank you. I hope you'll be able to hear me. I'll try to speak loud. Well, John Skinner, he's the mine expert, so I'll do my best to give some history of a place called Jacob City and the Hidden Treasure Mine. But primarily, I'll be sharing an experience that I had as a 10-year-old boy that involves John Skinner. I'd like to first introduce some family that I have here today. My wife, Joanna, is with us here, and my father, Terry Dennis, is here, and his son, Caleb. He's our oldest, and our three other kids are outside somewhere. They're tired of hearing me talk, so they decided to just be better to wander around outside, which is fine. So I'll share the story through some photographs. I'll be going through these slides, and that will help me share a little bit about an experience that I had as a 10-year-old. To start off, this is a photograph. This is actually a family photograph of John Skinner's family. So the man, I believe, if I've identified him correctly, in the middle with the shovel is like a great-great-grandfather of John Skinner. And this is a photograph of the discovery of the Hidden Treasure Mine. So the Hidden Treasure Mine is in the Ophir Mountains, and it's up Dry Canyon, and it was the beginning of an old mining town called Jacob City. And so when they discovered rich deposits of silver and other minerals there, they started at the top of a place called Treasure Hill. And that's where they're standing, on top of Treasure Hill. And they started to mine from the top going down, and just kept going through and digging through and mining out the ore. And we've discovered actually a family connection to the Hidden Treasure Mine. So my great, if I'm getting the greats right, grandfather, three greats my dad's given me, his name's Henry English, and he's the fellow on the right with the hat, and he was a miner, and he actually worked for a time at mining in Jacob City at the Hidden Treasure Mine. And so Jacob City sprung up, and it became one of the bigger mining towns in that area, and it just worked out. The Ophir Mountains the Ochre Mountains have hundreds of mines in them, and Hidden Treasure was one of the more prominent ones. And they, over about maybe 80 years to 100 years, they mined out the tunnels, and eventually digging out 21 miles of tunnel on 6 different levels in the Hidden Treasure Mine. So the Hidden Treasure Mine, very big, goes down multiple levels, and 21 miles of tunnel. And as you know, mines, as they're mined out, they're called abandoned mines because they're literally just abandoned. So there comes a time where they just tell the miners, we're done, I'm not going to work here anymore, and they just leave them. And oftentimes that meant they left tools, hard hats, even shirts. Sometimes people going through hidden treasure or different mines, they'll find like a shirt hanging up on a nail. They'll leave lanterns, bottles, cases of dynamite, and they just leave them. They're just like, we're done working here, no more work, I'm not coming back. And so they go off to the next job or try to find work elsewhere. Hidden Treasure Mine was no exception. That was exactly the kind of stuff that you found inside the Hidden Treasure Mine. So fast forward to 1989. Hidden Treasure had been long abandoned, and so had Jacob City, and so it was known as a ghost town. And there were some structures still left. So this is the way that it looked in 1989. This is an ore bin, and so the entrance of the Hidden Treasure Mine is a little further off the photograph to the right. And as they would haul cartloads of material, they would take it across here, and then they would dump where they could get it hauled off the mountain. So this is an ore bin that's falling apart, and today it's totally collapsed. That doesn't look like this anymore. Here's another photograph of that ore bin in 1989. So what does this have to do with me? So in 1989, I was 10, and we, as a church group, went on a camping trip. About 30 young boys and 11 adult leaders went camping. And the exciting place that we were going to go was Jacob City, to the Hidden Treasure Mine to explore it. And at that time, Hidden Treasure was a very popular place. Pretty much every weekend, there was somebody going inside the mine to explore it. And so that was the destination of our camping trip. And it'd be hard to find where the entrance of the Hidden Treasure Mine is in this photograph, but it's there. So this is the entrance, that little hole. So that's what it looked like at this time in the 80s. And here's a better photograph of it. That is the entrance of the Hidden Treasure Mine. So when it was operating, it was, there was tracks and you could haul the carts out. But over time, things collapsed, and even at one time it was closed. So the entrance was closed to prevent people from going in. But people will explore and they'll find their way in places. And so this is what it looked like when we went inside the Hidden Treasure Mine. So we went in to explore this mine. I was accompanying my father, who was one of the leaders on the camp. And I was actually too young to go as a young man to this camp, but I was joining my father, so I went with him. And we had large groups of young men, and one of the groups went in to explore with a couple leaders. And I went inside with my dad and three other young men that were older than I was. And so we venture in this little hole, and you kind of lower yourself down a ways, and then it levels out and opens up to a large tunnel, the main tunnel. So between the five of us, I was carrying my dad's flashlight, and there was another flashlight. So we were sharing two flashlights with the five of us as we were walking through these tunnels. And we got to a point where we decided to experience the darkness. Let's turn off our lights and let's see what it feels like, to be inside and see if it's true what they say that you can't see your hand in front of your face. So we turned off our flashlights, and it was just this all-consuming darkness. Actually, just last week, we went with our kids to the Timpanogos Cave and did the tour there. And they do that moment where they turn off the lights. You're guided through and there's lights all around, and then they turn it off. And they only turn them off for like less than 30 seconds. And they turn it back on. But if you've ever been inside Timpanogos Cave or inside of a mine, it's the most consuming darkness that I think we can experience, because there's absolutely no light. And your eyes do not adjust because there's nothing for your eyes to adjust to. So we experienced that, and then we flipped our flashlights back on and kept going down the tunnels. And we heard some noise. We heard someone coming from deeper inside the mine, and we decided, hey, let's turn our lights off and scare the person who's coming, because we knew it was someone from our group, right? So we turned the flashlights off and wait for a while, and we don't hear anybody come. So we've turned them back on, and the scout master, the leader, jumped out and he scared us. And he says, my group, though, that I'm with, we're just a little further down. If you follow me, you can join us. Well, at that moment, one of the boys that was with my dad and myself, he was starting to feel uncomfortable. He actually was visually impaired and had, I guess, legally blind. He could see, but in dim lighting, he loses almost all of his vision. And so he was done. Being inside there was just getting to him, and he asked my dad if he would take him out. So my dad said, of course, that he would. And me being so young, assumed that I would just go with them. But I wasn't done exploring. I wanted to follow with the other boys and join their group. And so the other leader that said, follow me, I'll take you to my group, he headed back to his group. The two other boys ran after him, and I handed my dad his flashlight that I was holding and followed along behind them. So my dad took the boy out. The other two boys did not know that I was following behind them. And my dad went to the entrance, they went further in the mine, and I was tagging along behind them. I could see their light as they started going forward, but they started to run and went around a bend, and I was left in that darkness alone. And so I lost their light, and I was in the dark. I turned around, my dad was gone, and I was left in the middle. So my immediate impulse as a boy was to do something that my mom always taught us as kids, that we could always pray. And so that was my first thought, was I could say a prayer. And that helped to keep me calm. And I believe that even though I was in the dark and I was alone, that God knew where I was, and it helped keep me calm. So I said a prayer, and I thought, maybe I can find my way to the entrance, because we hadn't gone that far into the mine. I didn't feel like we had gone that far. And we hadn't veered off into any other tunnels. And so with my right hand, I started feeling alongside the wall of the mine, walking towards what I thought was the entrance. And as I walked further, I tripped over obstacles that I couldn't see, ran into a support beam, just was stumbling around in the dark. But I started to climb upward, and the entrance has an incline. You have to scoot yourself down to get into the main tunnel. So I thought, I'm going up to the tunnel. I'm coming out of the entrance. But I kept going higher and higher and higher, and realized that this was too high and I did not know where I was. And so finally, as I crawled up and it leveled off into a little, felt relatively stable, where I didn't feel like I was going to fall and slide down, I stayed there and I waited, and I decided to do something, again, that my mom taught us as kids, that if you ever get lost, stay where you are. We're going to look for you and we are going to find you. But if you keep wandering around, it'll be harder for us to find you, and you might get yourself into more danger. So I decided to stay put, pray to God to send someone to find me, and I would wait. And that's what I did. Eventually, I fell asleep, and I quickly lost track of time. I couldn't tell how long I had been in there, if it had been minutes, hours, I didn't know. But what I didn't know was, as the boys were making their way out of the mine later that night, my dad the whole time was waiting outside of the mine. As he took the other boy out, he just waited for me to come out with the rest of them. And he saw boy after boy coming out, anxiously looking for me. And then when the trail of boys ended, it was panic. Where's Josh? Where's my son? And that's when they quickly realized that as they looked around the camp, looked in all the tents, that I hadn't, made my way out with another group or whatever, that I was missing and that I was inside the mine. So immediately they went back to search. It became quickly evident that this was an emergency situation. As my dad went back in with other leaders to search for me, they looked for actually hours, and came to one point where it looked like there was footsteps around a shaft and broken boards that felt like, or looked like possibly, that someone had tripped and fallen down. So one of the leaders with a harness and rappelling rope lowered himself down all the way until the rope was to the end, and he couldn't go any further, and he still was nowhere close to the bottom. And the fear that maybe I had wandered off and fallen down this shaft to my death. Well, they went to the sheriff in Tooele County and reported that I was missing, and a large search and rescue effort began. And this is a photograph of when that was happening with Tooele County, Salt Lake County Search and Rescue, and the Tooele County Sheriff's Department. This is a photograph of the gentleman holding the Pepsi. He's the scout leader, Kevin Weaver. Next to him is the sheriff, Tooele County Sheriff, and trying to go over what happened when I was last seen, when I went missing. Here's a photograph taken inside the Hidden Treasure Mine as they were searching for me. And here's another photograph inside the mine with search and rescue in Tooele County, a Tooele County deputy. So they continued to search with no trace. There was just no evidence of my whereabouts inside the mine. Started to speculate that I must have found my way out and I was lost somewhere around the mountain, but there was just no clue. I was as if I vanished completely in the thin air. This photograph and the next photograph are actually fairly current photographs from a young man that we met that still goes inside the hidden treasure mine and knows about the story, and he sent me these, and he said, I found some ribbons or tape, and he wondered if these were from when they were searching for me, because as different groups and teams would go inside, they would put ribbons around different areas, different colors, to indicate that this area had been searched, so they could see different colors and that certain areas had been searched 1 or 2 or 3 or more times. So they continue to search with no clue as my whereabouts. This is a photograph that is just really difficult to see for me and my father as he was being questioned about what happened and getting to the point as time passed that maybe I wouldn't be found. As I was in the mine, I eventually woke up from dreams. I started feeling really hungry and I was disoriented, and I'd remember where I was. If you've ever woken up and you're, especially as a kid, you wake up in an unfamiliar place and it takes you a little while to adjust and you realize where you're at. I was very thirsty and hungry, and I had a strange dream, that I was at school and it was lunchtime because I was so hungry. And I was waiting in a long line in the cafeteria to get lunch. And it was even dark in my dream, which was strange. It was dim and I could hardly see. And so this darkness even made its way into my dreams. And I was excited to see that we were having hamburgers and fries, and I had my tray and I was so excited. And I went and sat down and I looked away just for a second and my food had disappeared. And so even in my dream I couldn't eat, and I woke up and I had a rock actually in my hand, and I had pressed it to my mouth like as if I was ready to bite into to a juicy hamburger. But eventually I heard some noise in the distance and I cried out for help the best that I could. I was dehydrated and my mouth was very dry. And eventually that noise faded and was gone. And so I continued to wait and to pray, and could not tell how much time had passed. And eventually again I fell asleep and would wake up, and I heard some noise again, and I cried out for help, but this time I heard a response. And very faint in the distance I heard someone say, like, keep yelling. And so I yelled out as much as I could, and then I saw a light illuminate this little crevice that I had crawled into, and I heard a voice, someone calling to me and telling me to make my way down to where he was, and I scooted down and he picked me up. And I just remember him saying, "Thank God we found him." And I was confused because I could not recognize this person. I had no clue who he was. I was expecting to see my dad or one of the other leaders. And he whisked me away and started taking me towards the entrance. And he tells me, I think to calm me down or to reassure me that everything was going to be okay. He says, "We're going to take you to your mom and dad." And my response to him was curious. He thought it was a strange thing to say. I said, "Well, my dad's outside, but my mom's at home." Because in my mind, I was still on a camping trip, and that my mom had no idea what was happening, and that my dad was here waiting for me. And he asked me if I knew what day it was, and I told him that I thought it was Saturday. We had gone in on a Friday, And I thought that I had been in that mine all night. And I couldn't believe that I spent my whole camping trip inside the mine. And he told me that it was Wednesday and that they had been searching for me for 5 days. And in my 10-year-old mind, actually the only thing that was worrying me was that I had missed 3 days of school and I was going to get in trouble. And so they whisk me out of the mine, they take me out, and what added to my confusion is they handed me to the only person that I really recognized, which was my uncle. And I thought that was strange because he lived in San Diego, California. And I'm thinking, what in the world are you doing on my camping trip? And these are photographs that were taken at the moment of rescue. And so it slowly started to sink in what had happened. I see all these men, they're all dusty and dirty and with hard hats on, and they're all so excited to see me, and they can't believe that I'm found. And I'm thinking, Wednesday, how is that possible? I felt like I was in there just overnight, or, which felt forever. A whole day in a mine, that's crazy. And so I couldn't understand what was really happening. But I was taken down to Tooele, to the hospital there, and I was severely dehydrated and needed to be take life flight to Primary Children's Hospital. So I was taken in a helicopter to Salt Lake and wheeled into the emergency room. But I remember feeling pretty good. I felt pretty okay. I felt like I could just walk, just put me down and I can walk, take me home, I'm good. But I was dehydrated, and I actually ended up having frostbite on my feet. As I was stumbling around through the dark, I had walked into some pool, like little collections of spotty puddles on the floor, and my feet were cold, and I remember them feeling, starting to hurt and then feeling numb and kind of a stinging numbness. Inside the Hidden Treasure Mine, the temperature is always cold. It doesn't matter if it's the winter or the summer. It stays around 50 to 55 degrees all the time. And so it felt cold, not freezing, but my feet got frostbite. And this whole time, what I didn't realize was a whole other situation happening with John Skinner, which I can share a little bit about his experience. So John Skinner was a miner. He worked as a miner in the Ophir mine in Ophir Canyon, where he lived. And he also is a mine historian and a collector of relics, and has his own basically museum of things that he's found all throughout the Oquirrh Mountains and different mining towns. Well, at this time, he was out of state. He was on vacation from work, and he was doing some research about mine history in Montana. And he was not scheduled to go back to work for 2 more weeks. And he was only a couple days into his trip when he felt this really strong impression that he needed to pack up and go home. And this is 1989, so it's before cell phones and sending text messages and things and saying, I'm coming home, or he couldn't receive or get any calls or send any messages. So he just inexplicably packs up and ends up going home. And his wife, Chris Skinner, is surprised to see him. He gets home on Saturday morning, and she assumes that he must have heard that the sheriff was trying to contact him, asking questions about maps of the Hidden Treasure Mine, and that a little boy had gone missing the night before, and he had no idea what she was talking about, but said, if they need help, I can help. And he went to the sheriff's station and offered to help, and said that he knows the mine really well. And his help, to his disappointment, was declined. They said that we've got search and rescue up there, we've got a lot of people helping, and so we're okay, we're fine, we got it under control. But what I don't think they recognized was that John Skinner, he had been going inside that mine from the age of a little boy too, the same age that I had when I was lost. His grandfather was also worked in that mine as the superintendent and worked in that mine until it closed. And so he had been exploring that mine since he was a little boy. And he felt this relentless need to help. He knew that he could do something. So he kept trying. He tried to get up to the mine, but it was blocked off, the road to get up there, and he was turned away several times. But he persisted, and finally on that 5th day, when the search was starting to wind down, the sheriff had determined, we've exhausted all of our efforts. We've searched every tunnel. We've been to every place inside that mine. We've combed the mountain area. And sadly, after 5 days, most likely, the eye died. And so the search officially was going to be called off. So as it was winding down, John made his way up to the entrance of the mine. Actually, at the roadblock, he knew the deputy that was there to turn people away. And the deputy told him, he's like, I don't know why they won't let you up there. And he kind of looked around and he's like, just go up. And but he says, don't tell the sheriff that I saw you. And so he gets up there to the entrance of the mine, and he approaches the sheriff, and the sheriff is like, his responsibility was to keep everyone safe as well, and wasn't going to let anyone inside that wasn't part of search and rescue. And he was trying to ask permission to go inside. He felt like there was maybe 3 areas that would be easy to miss if I had found my way into one of those spots, but he was familiar with them. And as he was talking to the sheriff, 2 men from the Utah Power and Light mine rescue team, who had begun searching a couple days before, overheard the conversation, and one of them said, I want to take him in with me right now. And so the sheriff just said, it's fine. And so he went in, John Skinner went in with 2 other men from the Utah Power and Light mine rescue team. And they went to the spots where John had thought of, and as they were in the 3rd one, they were in a spot inside the mine called the Resolute Stope. And it was like a big room inside the mine, so to speak, kind of probably maybe as big as this area, but taller, where they just had excavated, and it just kind of creates this big open space. And as they were standing there, just kind of in silence for a moment, one of these men from the mine rescue team named Ray Guyman, he thought that he heard a sound, just something really faint in the background. He said he would describe it as like something striking a piece of tin or like a drop of water or something. And he asked the other 2 to be quiet and if they had heard anything. But the curious thing about Ray Guyman was he was actually hard of hearing. With a lifetime of shooting high-power rifles and working heavy farm equipment and being a coal miner, it had just damaged his hearing severely. And he was almost deaf in one ear and had just slight hearing in the other. And to remain on the mine rescue team, they actually had to take physical exams to remain on the team, and he would always fail the hearing test. And he would always say, I have to cheat to pass so that I can stay on the team. So he was known for having bad hearing, but he, out of the 3, heard a sound, and he asked the other 2 to be quiet and just to listen. And as all 3 of them were quiet, they heard a faint cry for help. And that's when they knew that I was alive and I was somewhere, but they couldn't tell where the sound was coming from. And that's when I heard someone yell out to me to keep yelling. And eventually, the other mine rescue team member, Gary Christensen, he thought that the sound was coming from above, and he ran up, imagine this room being the Resolute Stope, and there's maybe a 40% grade going up to the top. He ran up to try to see, and he found a little ore cavity that you couldn't see from below. And that's where I was. And he went up, and that's when he heard me, and he shined the light, and that's when I saw the light illuminating that little tunnel. So somehow, in the dark, alone, I was able to find a little ore cavity up in a little corner, probably the best hiding spot in the hidden treasure mine. Don't know how that happened. But that's where they found me, and that's when I was taken out of the mine. So this is a helmet that I have here, and it's just was a regular hard hat that they would wear, that they would use as they were searching for me, and it's signed in the front, Utah Power and Light Mine Rescue Team, and it has the signatures of all of the members of those teams that were helping find me. This is a photograph of me and my family in the hospital, and then this is a photograph with Gary Christensen and Ray Guyman, the two that were with John Skinner, as they visited me in the hospital. And the hard hat that I'm holding, they brought me that gift in the hospital as well. That was, as they were carrying me out, that was the hat that they put on my head as they took me out of the mine. This photograph, these are two volunteers from the search and rescue. And after I was found, they went back into the mine, just wanted to kind of see, like, where was this kid this whole time that we were looking for and we couldn't find him. And as they were going through, they found silver inside the mine, and they chipped it off of the wall, and they were super excited. They're still dirty. You see this guy's face is all grimy. They came the same day to the hospital, and they wanted to give me a gift. And so I have some silver. Here, I have those pieces up here up front. Brought me a piece of silver from the hidden treasure mine that was found the same day that I was found. And this is John Skinner. And so he was honored at a BYU football game. And we were invited to go. And I was still in a wheelchair recovering from frostbite on my feet. But at halftime, he wheeled me out, and he was given a standing ovation for not giving up and searching for me. So John Skinner is also, like I mentioned, really good at finding things, I guess including boys. But he gave me this as a gift. It's a silver dollar, and it's from 1921. And he gave this to me. He found a cache of these coins in the Ophir Mountains, close to Jacob City. And I love this reminder, both the piece of silver and the coin. And this experience for me, it's never really been about, how to survive in a mine for 5 days. It's always been a spiritual experience. I feel like it was a miracle, and that I was blessed. I don't know exactly why my life was spared, but I do feel like it was a miraculous blessing, a miracle. And this coin and that piece of silver reminds me, if it's okay if I read a parable. This is a parable of Christ, and he says, "Either what woman having 10 pieces of silver, if she lose one piece, doth not light a candle and sweep the house and seek diligently till she find it? And when she hath found it, she calleth her friends and her neighbors together, saying, Rejoice with me, for we have found the piece which I had lost. Likewise I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner that repenteth." And so out of 30 boys that went on that camping trip, one of them went missing. And as a father, as a leader of young men, you don't say, well, we came home with 29, that's pretty good. You don't do that. You don't leave the one. You stop everything and you search for that boy until you find him. And that's what happened. And when I was found, there was rejoicing. This is a scene in front of our house. As I came home from the hospital, all of our neighbors in the whole neighborhood came to welcome me home. And it was a very touching experience. And I got a television camera in my face and a microphone. I didn't know what to do with that, but I was overwhelmed, and I felt a great outpouring of love and support, and it's something that I'll never forget. Through this experience, it got a lot of attention, and this is actually a photograph with Governor Norm Bangerter, who, after I was found, started an initiative across the state of Utah to close abandoned mines. So Utah, I think, if I have my numbers somewhere written down, but there's like 12,000, 14,000 mines in Utah. And as they get worked out and they're done, they're just abandoned. So at this time, there were just openings of mines all over the place, especially throughout the Ophir Mountains, but just all across the state. And it's expensive to close them. And so it was not an easy feat, but he made an initiative to close these mines to prevent further incidents. And so I was invited to meet him, and as he was signing that that legislation into law to close the mines. And another side note, Boy Scouts of America, there was a lot of criticism for why are Boy Scouts going into mines. And so, when a lot of times when there's rules, it's because someone did something. And so after this, the Boy Scouts of America nationwide had to make it like explicitly part of their rules, no exploring abandoned mines. So I ruined that for all the Boy Scouts, but they're dangerous anyway. Part of the dangers in mines is they're not man-made, they're not caves, they're not natural formations, so they're unstable. Over time, they do collapse, so there's cave-ins, they'll just crumble in. That's why they have to put support beams as they're working so that they don't die and get trapped in there. So over time, those timbers will rot and they'll cave in. Because of the minerals and what they're mining out, some mines actually have poison gas, and you can't even smell it. It's just toxic. Carbon monoxide poisoning is also a common thing. So you can go in a mine and not even know, and after time just kind of get dizzy and pass out and die. Also, there's shafts like the one that my dad and other leaders thought that I had fallen down. So without warning, I could have been wandering around. If I didn't stay put and wait, I could have been every step was taking another chance of falling down one of those vertical shafts. And there's also boxes of dynamite. And so as they were searching for me, they found dynamite in 2 places in the Hidden Treasure Mine. And it's so old and volatile that the nitroglycerin is like crystallizing around the dynamite. And all it would take is you just to kick it and it could blow up. So a boy just grabs one and it can blow up, or you're walking, you don't see it, and you can kick it and it'll detonate. So very dangerous. So abandoned mines are very dangerous. This is a letter from President George H.W. Bush. So after I was rescued, he was notified that I was rescued, and I have that letter up front if you want to take a look at it. And it's special. President Bush acknowledges God's hand in our lives, and that this was a miracle. And one of the things that I love the most is that he recognizes the community that supported our family, which was a tremendous amount of support. Strangers, people that we didn't know, found out that someone was missing and they dropped everything to help. People showed up ready to go to volunteer to find a boy that they had never heard of, didn't know. And so this is a great experience of how people help each other in time of need. Here's a cartoon from the Deseret News. And I think the message here, I think, is I like that. We search for silver and gold, but what was really found was, for a lot of people, was a renewed faith in God and also in each other, the goodness of people helping each other. And so it's became an experience that those that were involved will never forget. This is 1 year after the rescue. We went back to Jacob City, to the mine. This is our family a year later. And this is a a photograph of me, now 11 years old, with Ray Guyman, Gary Christensen, and John Skinner, with my rescuers a year later. And then this, many years later, this is 30 years after, we got together to meet and to be with each other, and we drove back up to Jacob City, and we're standing in front of the now closed entrance to the hidden treasure mine. And this is me and John Skinner that same day, and we're standing in front of the Ophir mine, which you can still go in probably about 50 feet, but then it's closed off. But it's a kind of a historic area up in Ophir, and so this is where he worked as a young man, as a miner. Our family received hundreds and hundreds of letters, and we saved every single one of them. And this is a special one for me, and I actually don't remember seeing it when I was rescued. There were so many, but about 30 years later, as I was going through these letters, I was just flipping through, and this one, because of how big the letters are and the message, and then I realized that it's anonymous. I don't know who wrote it, but I do know that it was a high school student, so a young person, and I just love the sentiment. God loves you from someone who cares. P.S. Get well soon. And that was kind of, in a way, summarizes my feelings of this experience, that God loves us and people care. This is a special item. This is a photograph of a marble statue. And John Skinner found this, and he has this statue in his collection. He found it at Jacob City, just I believe like 2 weeks maybe after I was rescued. He went back up there and was still just thinking about what had happened, like this miraculous experience of his involvement in rescuing me. And so he went up there and he just kind of wanted to think. And as he was walking around, he saw something catch his eye, like the sun just kind of reflected off of something, and it sparkled a bit. And he went over to a pile of rubble, and he moved it away, and he kind of dug in a little bit, and he found this marble statue, tiny little statue of an angel. And it just kind of was a tender reminder of what he felt and what a lot of people felt, including myself, that through this ordeal that was heart-wrenching for my parents and very difficult, that there was help that was unseen, angels, ministering angels. And so that's something that all of us that were involved in this experience feel and believe to this day. And I have one up here. This is a replica of that angel. So after many years later, I remember thinking, after I was rescued and I got a lot of attention from this experience, and honestly, it started to, I'm a quiet, shy person, and I get embarrassed very easily. And I was just like so ready just to move on and not have any more attention. And I thought to myself, I can't wait until 10 years from now, because 10 years was the age that I had at the time. I thought that was a whole lifetime away. I can't wait till 10 years from now when everyone has forgotten this ever happened. I would never have predicted that, 35, 36 years later, I'd still be sharing this experience. But a couple years ago, a movie filmmaker named Garrett Batty contacted from my wife, Joanna, about this experience, and she suggested to him that he consider making a movie about this experience, that maybe it could inspire people, and he got interested and explored the possibility, and it ended up working out. And so this is a photo of Garrett Batty in the middle. He's a director, and this is on the set of making a movie called Faith of Angels, and it came out last year. And this is special because the two on each end with hard hats are the actors that played Ray Guyman and Gary Christensen in the movie, and the real Ray Guyman and Gary Christensen are in the middle there, and Garrett's in between them. And so they came to be on set as the film was being made, and they make a cameo appearance in the movie as kind of extra rescuers, search and rescue. So that was kind of special. And so that movie is called Faith of Angels. And I'll conclude with a movie clip. This is a trailer, and just want to thank you for letting me be here and speak with you. And this has been a real privilege for me. If you have any questions if there's still time, be welcome. I'd welcome questions if you want to talk after, or however you want to do this. But I'll just play this trailer real quick.
Dad, do you think we could go into the mine now?
Yeah, these mines are like a maze. We could turn around so quick in here. Can you imagine walking around in this with no light?
Can't even see the opening anymore.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
It's been nearly 24 hours since 10-year-old Joshua Dennis was last seen.
Joshua!
Someone's gonna find him.
Why can't they hear me?
Why'd you come back so early?
I guess I just heard a voice.
Voice?
Sheriff, I think I can help.
I have a crew in there right now. They handle this kind of thing.
If he's in there, we'll find him.
What is he doing in there? Is he cold? Is he hurt?
We'll investigate all scenarios that could have happened to the boy.
All scenarios.
The boy might be lost in there, or he could be hiding or injured. Maybe the boy just doesn't want to say anything.
Why would my son be hiding? It just doesn't make any sense. We've been through every possible place he could be.
I think it's time we just consider the inevitable.
Are you a man of faith, Sheriff?
You don't run something that's important on faith.
Hundreds of volunteers reached out through letters, prayers, and even showing up at the mine.
I spent my life crawling around through those tunnels, and I can't shake the feeling that I should be helping.
Take heart, my love, 'cause when I see you, I see hope. When I see you, I see hope. There's a world that needs what you got to give.
We have a missing boy. If he has even a sliver of hope, we better respond to it.
It was they call it an ore cavity, so just a little, it's hard to tell. I mean, I don't know because I didn't see it. But I've been told that it was just kind of like just a little tunnel, maybe this high, and just kind of went back in. Or I guess, yeah, you'd probably have to crouch down to get in there. And I was kind of already feeling around, and I did realize, or it seemed to me that I had hit a dead end as I was feeling around. But yeah, and I think it only went back maybe 15, 20 feet, something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How are your feet? Did they recover fully?
Yeah, so as the first day at the hospital, doctor looked at my feet and thought that I'd probably have to have some toes amputated. The skin was starting to turn. It was like dark purple and going that way. But they did recover, so I got circulation back, and I just had to have some physical therapy after, but I still have all of my toes. So. Yeah.
I know during this time you caught the attention of the whole nation, who kind of paused with your family and neighbors, waiting to see what was going to happen. I can remember living in Tooele, hearing all about that. That was a great thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Josh?
This one's actually for your dad.
Yeah.
As a parent, what were you feeling?
Horrible. Yeah. So, I come up here. Sure. For me, I felt guilt because, and Joshua talked about changing the Boy Scout rules. He was the first Cub Scout to affect the Boy Scouts and changing the rules, because I was a Scout leader, he was the Cub Scout, but I always wanted him to go with me because it made it more enjoyable for me as a parent. And he doesn't talk about this, but I actually bribed him to come with me. So, but I don't think I ever paid the bribe because it was, anyway, it was just guilt because I was responsible, you know. And some of the things that happened was there were 30 boys and a lot of rumors were spreading. People said things like him and I had an argument and he wandered off, or I did something to him, and none of that was true. It was so innocent what happened. I was taking a boy out, he wanted to go forward and he lost track, and so he just kind of stayed where he was. It was really simple and innocent thing, but it took almost 6 days, you know. And the police interviewed me, interrogated me, questioned me Saturday morning, and then they kicked me off the mountain because I was, not doing well. And we just waited, and Josh talked about them closing. That Wednesday was going to be the last day. They were going to close the mine, and the sheriff had come and visited us, and so we're closing the mine. So we had planned a memorial to go back up as they closed it. But we were, it's really hard because we were praying with our ecclesiastical leader, and a knock came on the door. They'd found him. So it was pretty tough. For me, it's still raw. It's right there. Because my experience is different than anybody else's, only because of he's my son, And all of you can relate, I'm sure, in terms of what, for years I'd wake up at night, what if? And I don't anymore because I know where he is. So, but yeah, there's a scripture that talks about going from the lowest low to the highest high. And we were at the lowest low you could possibly be until the knock came on the door, and then you go from that emotion to the other, like instantly. It's hard to process, but yeah, it was a good outcome. So.
Did you ever get that cheeseburger and fries?
All right.
Sweet first. Do you remember what you ate?
Jump.
Yeah, the first thing that I was given was some water, but the video, if there actually is video of me coming out, and it's funny because it's in a Coke bottle, so it looks like I'm chugging but it's just water. But then I was given just what they had on hand, which was some sandwiches, like a box of raisins. And so I was given that, but on the way down, I threw it up because I just couldn't, my system couldn't take it. So I was basically just in the hospital with IV and pudding for a bit. And when I got home, I got some pizza. So.
Can I just tell one other thing about Josh? I was really worried about him as a parent, the psychological effect of what. And so a few days later, I had asked him, I says, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you? Just wanting to see how he was and where he was at. And he thought for a second, he says, I think it was when I was 8 and broke my arm. So because he had fallen off some kind of a slide and broke his arm. So that told me he was okay. Yeah.
So Josh, so it never crossed your mind that you might die?
No. Yeah, not a single time. I didn't have a single thought that this was a life-threatening situation, that I wasn't going to make it out. And I feel like that was a miraculous blessing. I don't know how else I can describe it. I felt calm, comforted, and that I just needed to wait. And again, it to this day, I've thought about this over and over again for many years, trying to explain it. And I don't know how it's possible that I was in there for 5 days. At the time, I didn't feel it. So I fell asleep, maybe fell asleep for days at a time. I don't know. Yeah, it just felt like overnight. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kudos to your mother for teaching you to do this and that, and so her teaching, and you listened. that helps you survive.
Yeah. Sometimes we think kids don't listen, but it doesn't seem like it. But I remember things that my dad and my mom taught us, and in this instance, it helped save my life. Yeah. Growing up, we would have gospel lessons at home. We would read the scriptures, and so just the week before, we had a lesson, and it was my mom and my dad would have us take turns as kids to lead the lesson. And it was my turn, and the lesson was about faith and talking about having faith in God as small as a grain of mustard seed. And we read scripture in the Gospel of Matthew. And that had a pretty profound impact on me as I read that scripture, and just like that thought that if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing will be impossible. And so we had in that lesson a packet of mustard seeds as like a visual aid, and it was just like, see how tiny these are? They're so little, but with God, nothing's impossible. And that was what I felt. I felt that was true, and so I said, with like the faith of a child, just a little 10-year-old, I said, with God's help, nothing is impossible. And my mom could only imagine what was going on in my head, thinking like, okay, maybe we don't want him to get a little crazy, think that he can, fly around like Superman or whatever. And so she was like, well, yeah, but, almost anything. You can do almost anything. And kind of uncharacteristically for myself, I defended myself back, and I said, no, we can do anything. Nothing's impossible, That's what the scripture says. And so that was an interesting experience, just the strengthening of my faith through that testimony in that scripture, and then just a week later, I was lost and felt that I was going to be okay, and that it was, that God was there, and He heard my prayers, and that He would send someone to find me, and that was my experience. Well, I do remember something that my dad told me that I always remembered. After this happened, some time had passed, and he said, someday you'll need to rely on the faith that you had when you were lost in the mine. Just as a reminder, we have to remember our spiritual experiences. And that's something that's always been helpful for me, and has strengthened me throughout my life, because we might have a spiritual experience or a faith-promoting experience, and then sometime later we forget, right? And things kind of fade, memories fade, and then we forget how we once were, or the faith that we had. So that's been something that's been helpful for me all throughout my life, just to think and remember, to always remember. And my dad, I don't want to speak for for him, but I don't think we've had a moment where we sat down like you mentioned, but just hearing my dad's experiences and what he went through was the opposite of what I went through. I didn't suffer, and now as a father, I have 4 kids, and that's like become I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of getting lost, but I'm afraid of one of my kids getting lost. That's like that's my worst fear, is losing one of my kids. So, yeah.
For me, I don't talk about it because it's too raw, too emotional. He wrote a book, This Power and Light, and I opened it up, didn't even read a word, and started crying, because I don't know, the whole thing. And maybe I've got mental issues. I don't know. It's just right there, because for me it was real, but the guilt, but also the whole miracle. What Josh hasn't told you is how many lives were touched because of what he went through. I mean, we've got hundreds and hundreds of letters, but I personally know of dozens of people who changed their life because of it. There were guys that came up, really tough, rugged guys who made their own little commitment that they would change if he was found. And I don't know why they did that, but they did. And I don't know about all of them, but I know some of them did change. So, in my view, for me, it's Joshua was simply an instrument for others, because nothing happened to him. He was fine, you know. It was everything going on outside all around. That's where all the stuff was happening. So, I mean, if he wasn't found, it'd be a different story. But because he was found, you know, and everything was fine, he was, in my view, an instrument to help others. So, we're LDS, and the ward we lived in, the church we lived in, they had a change of leadership, and the ward was struggling, and the bishopric had prayed for something to happen to bring the ward closer together. And after I found out, I went up to the bishop. I said, "Don't ever do that." Yeah. So things like that happen, but you know, sometimes individuals are used as just vessels or instruments for others. And I think that's one of the messages, not the whole message, but one of the messages of what happened. John Skinner, a wonderful human being, you know, listened and came, you know. So there's lots and lots of stories within the story. So.
I was going to show this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just this little fun fact. This is actually the coat that I was wearing when I was lost. My mom kept it because one of the things as a mother, when I went missing, she was asked over and over again, what was he wearing? You know, and sometimes you just don't remember. You don't know. What did his shoes look like? What are the pattern on the shoes? And she felt so bad. Like, I don't know, I can't describe it. And so after I was found, I still had my coat on, and they, you know, I took it to the hospital, and they took it off and they gave it to my mom, and she just like hugged the coat. and then we kept it, and then when they were, the movie was being made, we mentioned to the director, because they were looking for wardrobe and they're asking questions and stuff, and it was like, the day that they were filming the scene when the rescue, we told them, well, we actually still have the coat that I was wearing when I was lost. And he's like, you do? Can we see it? Can we take it? And so the actor that portrays me in the film actually wore this coat in the movie. So he put it on and he's like, well, it just maybe a little too small, but it was good enough. And so he was wearing the same coat that I was wearing when I was lost. So before I went into that night to inside the mine, we had some dinner, and my dad got out a bag of licorice nibs, and so I grabbed like a handful and I ate a bunch, and then I put some in my pocket. So that was actually the only thing that I had with me to eat. So I did have a little bit of licorice nibs. I'm sure I ate them within like the first 5 minutes, so it wasn't like they lasted me for 5 days. But I just remember that so much, like licorice nibs, you know. They were with me when I was lost, and so when the script for the movie was made, I just offered a correction because they were mentioning candy, like, you know, Twizzlers or Red Vines or something. I'm like, well, actually, they were licorice nibs. You know, you got to get it right.
I'm sure Josh will hang around a little bit if the mothers of you want to ask him personal questions, but we do thank him and his father for sharing this story with us. And we're sorry that John Skinner couldn't have been here. The story hinges on his knowledge and willingness to pay attention and caring and all of those qualities that anyone would gain something from emulating, and so that is a great inspirational part of the story. So we miss him, but we're so thankful that we got it from your point of view. So I just want to say that the whole story just validates my point that true history is much more interesting than something you could make up. Thank you so much.